Wine is fun. It should be fun. And it's even more fun if you share it with people you love or like. They don't have to think this, they don't have to like the same wines you like, but they have to have the same mindset. So you're really looking for a wine soulmate, shall we say. By the way, I'm Ellen from the blog Wine Talk with Ellen. I'm all about finding wines you like or love and without overthinking, without overspending. But my whole focus is really on having a great time with wine. So how do you find this wine soulmate? And it doesn't have to be just one person. It can be a group. It's just people who sort of think like you, so that when you're trying wine or sitting around having wine, you're not rolling your eyes at each other and going, who thinks like that? So how do you find them? Well, let's take this really fun, unofficial quiz so that you can try to find somebody who thinks like you. Now, you can take it totally by yourself. You can take it with somebody, and you can decide what your thoughts are, and you think what your soulmate's thoughts are. You can do it any way you want. Now, stick with me until the end, because then I talk about another type of quiz at the end. Just letting you know that this is totally unscripted. My video editor, shout out to him, will add anything that I sort of forget to say. He has asked me to have a few notes so that I'm not going way off, which I have. But let's start with the quiz. Now, the way the quiz is going to work is I'm going to suggest to you real life experiences that I've had, and I'm going to see how you would respond. I'm going to say how I did respond or should have responded, but then you're going to decide how you responded and how you think your wine soulmate responded. Now, the first one is White Zinfandel. If somebody came up to you and said, you want this nice white Zinfandel? By the way, this is not white Zinfandel. This is really rosé. Not that white Zinfandel isn't, but that's a story for another time. I do have a whole blog post on drinking rosé year-round, but you'll find the link in the description. But white Zinfandel was one of the first blush wines, and it is sweet. So the reason white Zinfandel is like this litmus test of how somebody's going to respond to wine is because people who don't like sweet wine or remember when all rosés were sweet, if somebody offered them a white Zinfandel, they'd go, oh my God, I don't want a white Zinfandel. What are you thinking? This would not be my response. I'm more polite than that, but there are those who aren't. And that's what you are going to be looking for. So my response, if somebody said, hey, want a glass of this white, can I offer you a white Zinfandel? I may say, got anything else? But I'm not going to think less of the person just because they think white Zinfandel could be delicious. A lot of people like sweet wine, more than you think. So many people ask for dry wine, but a lot of people like sweet wine. There's nothing the matter with a white Zinfandel or sweet wine. But how would you respond if somebody said to you, hey, would you like a white Zinfandel? How would your wine soulmate respond? If you are with somebody, freeze the camera, have a conversation. Let's move on to the next one. Now, this one really did happen to me. Well, so did the white Zinfandel situations, but that was years ago. When I was first starting to get interested in wine, I should have known better, but I had a friend come over and I had a very nice bottle of white wine. And she said to me, could I have it as a spritzer? Now, first of all, I should have read the room better. You never want to offer a bottle of wine to somebody and say, this is a good bottle. This is good wine. If they don't like it, it's not good to them. But if she wanted a spritzer, I responded at the time saying, no. She was never going to be she didn't like wine. She really didn't like wine. She was never going to be my wine soulmate. But I said, let me get you a less expensive wine so we can add seltzer to it. I don't know if I would handle it that way these days because I can read the room better, but you never know. How would you respond? How would you want your wine soulmate to respond? Then we move on, and it's a little similar to this one. Suppose you pour a glass of champagne for somebody, and they say, Could I have an ice cube in that? Martha Stewart puts ice cubes in her champagne. Now, I don't know if Martha Stewart puts ice cubes in every glass of champagne she has, but I don't really care if Martha Stewart wants to do it. In general, if I offered them a glass of champagne and it was a proper temperature and they wanted to put an ice cube in it, I would say, you won't be able, the second you make wine too cold, you can't taste anything. And I don't care if Martha Stewart does it. What would you do? What would you want your wine or future wine soulmate to do? You want to be thinking similarly in this. Another one is, suppose you're at somebody's house and somebody offers you a glass of wine and it tastes terrible. What do? It tastes terrible to you. I'm assuming that the person who's giving it to you, they like it. Now, it depends how well I know the person. But hopefully I did not make a face when I tried the wine. I do have that problem. It's like a flinch. I'll just go, and you don't want to do that if you can help it. But how would you handle it if you're at somebody's house and they give you a glass of wine and you don't like it? Well, you can say, thank you, I'm not drinking right now. This isn't to my taste, or let me just put this down. But how would you handle it? I would handle it saying, thank you very much, and then hopefully not make a face and just not drinking. I can manage not drinking through a dinner, provided they didn't say, is there anything the matter with your wine? But how would you handle that? How would somebody else handle that, as opposed to saying, well, this is just terrible wine, or I don't know. This is the kind of thing you want when you're talking to your wine soulmate. Now, another one is, you're in a wine store, and suddenly there are a lot, if you go in for free tastings or whatever, some of the places have a distributor who is sitting there telling you about the wine, and sometimes they get really detailed. Do you stay if you're just casually in there? How much do you want to hear about rootstocks and, how old the wine, where it's been aged and where the wind was coming? You may want to, or your wine soulmate may want to. You want to make sure you're basically on the same page with how much detail you want on a casual day. If you go into a formal wine tasting, you're paying for it or whatever, you may want to hear more. But if it's just casual, I would probably be out of there. But you want to, maybe you have a really serious, just make sure you're on the same wavelength. None of these are deal breakers. Because some of these issues, how somebody handles something, is you don't want somebody to be rude. I mean, whether it's wine or not, it'll tell you what the person is like, never mind about the wine. So I was at another free wine tasting, because I go to a lot of them, and somebody goes up to talk to the distributor, and he says, so are these pre-phylloxera grapes? Now, phylloxera was a blight that almost wiped out all the the vineyards in Europe. There are very few pre-phylloxera wines. I do not know whether you would ever be able to tell when you were trying it. But I really almost burst out laughing, because I'd never heard anybody be quite that affected. But now I have no idea. Did he think he had to say something? Is he just a bug guy? And in the same way that I was at a wine tasting, I go to a lot, and somebody was standing there and go, well, this wine is approachable. Not as approachable as that wine. And I'm thinking, what does that even mean? Some people feel the need to say something. I do not. And would you? Do you feel the need to sort of just show them that you do know something? I'm big on asking questions. There's a lot I don't know. I love to learn. Would your wine soulmate be the type to say, are those pre-phylloxera grapes? They weren't, by the way. Because there aren't a lot. All right. Now, I have been to wine stores. I went to one wine store that they've said to me, This wine was really, whether it was a Kardashian, really like, you should really try this wine. And I'm like, why would I care that a famous person endorsed this bottle of wine? Generally, it will be more expensive because a famous person endorsed it. It's not to your taste. But if somebody said that to you, or if a friend said it to you, because you may respond differently to if a friend says it to you than if somebody who's working at a store says it to you. But how would you respond? How would your wine soulmate respond? They may watch TMZ all the time and be thrilled, or not. Generally, you don't know what that person's taste is like. You're looking for a wine that you like, for a price point you like. I don't care what some famous person endorsed a wine. Okay, now I was also at a wine tasting. I was at a champagne tasting, and somebody commented, "Oh, I really prefer Prosecco." Prosecco is not the same. It's bubbly, but it is not the same as champagne. I have a whole post on that too. Now, in this case, I did go to the woman and say to her, Prosecco and champagne isn't the same. In retrospect, I shouldn't have done that. This woman is perfectly fine liking Prosecco more than champagne. Of course, all champagnes don't taste the same and all Proseccos don't. But if this woman was happy announcing it, I should have let it go. I do not have to be teacher-in-chief all the time. I do feel a little knowledge goes a long way, and I have a blog post on this too, because I do find sometimes the more you know helps a little. But would you say something? Would your wine soulmate say something? And sometimes it's the tone they say something. So, these are the things, you want to find somebody who thinks like you. The one thing that made me crazy is if I don't like a wine, if I'm at anywhere tasting wine and they go, "But you don't understand. This has very high points." Wine ratings make me crazy. I never want to be told I should like a wine because somebody liked it. But you may like, I don't know if you originally didn't like the wine, you were going to like it more because some expert gave it some high points. But how would you handle it? How do you feel about wine points? People who rate these wines. A lot of people like the extra, the extra advice, which I don't really think it is. They're looking for totally different things in a glass of wine, odds are, than you are. But how would you handle it? How do you handle it with points? I know that people who sell wine, somebody who owns a winery, points are very important to them because it's marketing. But again, how would you handle it? How would you want your wine buddy to handle it? Now, let's talk about ordering a wine at a restaurant. If you're out with somebody and they go to order a really expensive wine because they believe it's better, do you say anything? Do you say, "Why are you doing this? You don't know if it's any better," or whatever? In my opinion, that really depends, whether I would say anything, is who's paying. If that person is paying, they can do anything they want. It's up to them. It's their dime or whatever. But if I'm sharing it, if I'm splitting the check, I'm saying something. Because at that point, I don't want to pay because they believe that a better wine is more expensive. If I'm ordering wine at a restaurant and they recommend something that's more expensive than I really want, I'll say, "How about this? And what am I gaining and what am I losing with the two?" But if somebody is doing it on their own, would you speak up? Even if you were splitting the check and you're not happy with it, would you say something? Or would you say, "Yeah, I believe that too. I believe that more expensive wine is better." And what do you want your wine soulmate to do? On the other hand, suppose you're out with a group and somebody goes to order the cheapest bottle of wine on the menu, on the wine list or whatever. There is a whole belief system of how much wines are marked up based on the price. I don't think you'll ever figure it out. Somebody once, I overheard them saying, "Well, percentage-wise, you're best off with a markup ordering the best wine, which is the most expensive wine, because that has the least markup." this makes absolutely no sense. And this was a finance guy. So I really wonder. And I did not feel the need to correct him because I will maybe never see him again. And sometimes when you talk to people, you got to realize what is the upside of your correcting them. In this case, I can just vent about this. But I mean, I have been to a restaurant that they charge $90 for a bottle of wine that I knew I could get at another restaurant for $60. Everybody has their own ways. But if somebody's choosing to order the least expensive, my first question would be, do you like that wine? If you like that wine, great. If you're only ordering it, like you may hate that grape type or whatever, because it's the cheapest, you probably could decide a different way. How would you respond it? How would your wine person, your buddy, I mean, look at it as a wine buddy. If it's not a soulmate, it's your crew. It's because it is more fun having wine with other people who are like-minded. They do not have to like the same wines you like. Now, you just don't want to be hanging out with people who are rolling their eyes at each other. You wanted a fun experience. Now, I do happen to have, if you want a more formal wine quiz, I do have some of these questions and the answers are multiple choice. Instead of sort of a free-for-all here. But it's a good discussion, and you learn about people when you talk to people like, how would you respond? The multiple choice quiz will be available. It will be a link or pinned in the comment section, and you can get it that way. And put comments below what you think about any of these things. When I told you how I responded to certain things, you could have said to me, you could say, I don't know if you should have. Although I think I'm self-aware enough of when I'm totally wrong. I do put my teacher hat like, hey, I want to help you, cheerleader for wine hat on a little too often. But in general, I'd love to hear how other people handle these things. Now's the time that I should tell you to subscribe to the channel because you want to keep this fun going. I may do other quizzes similar to this on other issues. I'll see everybody's response on this one. Now, I also want to tell you that, and I mentioned it before, a little knowledge goes a long way. I do have a ultimate, really quick wine guide that's got little 8 mini wine guides within it. And I'm going to have my video editor, who I count on for everything, sort of post it up here. So you can sign up for that. Now, this was a very informal quiz, but I really do like to know how other people think about wine. And I want everybody to have fun with wine. And some people take it too seriously, in which case those aren't going to be your peeps. Those are not going to be your wine buddies. That's not going to be your wine soulmate. But let's keep this party going. Let's keep the conversations going. And cheers to all. I hope you find your wine soulmate. Cheer. Oh, I said cheer? Should have said cheers. Maybe we'll edit that out. Who knows? You'll know.